Triumphant Birth podcast. I'm Jamie Reichschlager, doula, childbirth educator, and mom of 3, including twin babies. Join us as we explore the transformative power of healing through childbirth, delve into the options, receive guest expert wisdom, and hear inspiring stories that pave the way for healing and wholeness throughout pregnancy, birth, and beyond. In a culture where birth is often viewed with fear, we aim to shift the narrative by showcasing pregnancy and birth as opportunities for personal growth, enhanced experiences, and generational healing. Whether the journey is smooth sailing or filled with unexpected challenges, this podcast offers a supportive space for birth workers and everyone navigating their profound realities in the childbearing season of life. Tune in and embark on a journey toward empowerment, resilience, and triumph. Your babies will thank you. Hello. Welcome to another episode of the Triumphant Birth podcast. I am here with a birth story today. And today, Meghan is going to be sharing the birth of her son, Callum. Meghan is a natural-minded wife and mom of a soon-to-be 2-year-old. She is a wellness and birth advocate who is currently working as an educational coach for the preschool level and enjoying her summers at home. Meghan is also working on finishing her childbirth education certification and creating something to share with the community soon. I'm very excited about that. I'm a big cheerleader of yours, Meghan, and I'll just say for our listeners that I know Meghan because she took one of the 2 childbirth ed classes so we do class in a set of 2 sessions. You and your husband, Derek, were at the first session and you were not at the second session because you had your baby. So I have not heard this story yet. I'm very excited to hear how everything went for you and Derek. And so thank you so much for spending time with me today.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me. I've been excited all week for this.
Beautiful. So before we get into the heart of why we're here, into your birth story, I'm wondering if we can back up a little bit and you can share whatever is comfortable for you on any piece of your conception journey. What made you feel ready? Did it happen immediately? All of those things, and really anything you'd like to share about that.
Yeah, that's a loaded question because I feel like my pregnancy was such a journey in itself, and a lot of growth and learning happened through becoming pregnant. It was a surprise for us, actually. So neither one of us we knew we wanted kids. It just was a little bit of a surprise. So we kind of, for like a while, I was just kind of processing it all. I hadn't read anything, hadn't done any prep work whatsoever. But it really did change me because now it's like my biggest passion. So, it was such a journey through, finding the right provider for us. I remember like just sitting down together and being kind of like lost, like, okay, who should we schedule an appointment with? And I only knew about birth from the media and what everyone says about it and the horror stories. And that's what I went into it with. So I was a little scared. It was such a learning process for me and my husband. And I think about how far we've come, and holy moly, we're like completely different people now. So it was a surprise, and we learned a lot along the way. We switched providers multiple times. I remember like asking around, asking who people liked, and just kind of going into it that way. And was finding that the recommendations weren't the people that were right for me. I was feeling really discouraged a lot of my pregnancy, feeling really lost. And I think that's what brought me to now being a birth advocate, in considering myself, a birth and wellness advocate, is because there's not a lot of education and there's not a lot of positivity that I heard personally. And I think it's really important to share. So I love what you're doing, Jamie, too, and just sharing the positive stories and the education, because if we don't talk about it, people don't know. And that's how I felt. Like I had no idea what I was doing.
And so many moms, especially their first time going through that whole process, don't know because it's not a part of our system. And I don't know when this episode will be published. Perhaps it's already out, but I am so happy to have spoken with Larissa Paul, who is directly addressing that through educating girls when they're young. So maybe that episode was released last week, by the time this one comes out. If not, it will be released soon. So that is sort of an answer to some of this gap in education and just normalcy that we so desperately need. So I still, even with all of that, I'm really impressed with you, how it was sort of this disorienting time and still you honed in on your instincts and were able to make the decision to switch practitioners that you were not aligned with. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Like who you started with and what led you to switch?
Yeah. I mean, as with my experience, like I was like, okay, well, I need to go to the hospital. I was freaking out, like, oh my gosh, I need to see a doctor right now. And I think very differently now. Like, this is a natural part of life. Like, it's all good. So, I remember sitting down on the computer, like, just randomly looking up providers with Derek, my husband, and we're like, how about this hospital because it has a NICU, and like I don't know, we just had no idea how to choose a provider. So we scheduled an appointment with an OB in town, and it was someone that was recommended to us by like two other people. So we were like, okay, this will be good. I will never forget my first appointment. Derek was with me, and like I might get emotional talking about it because it was really discouraging. Like, it was 10 minutes long, and I remember asking, although this was all a surprise to us, I am a proactive person just in general. I'm in education. I was a teacher. Like, I'm a proactive person, and I'm a very type A person. So I remember asking her towards the end, like, what can I be doing right now to prepare? Like, such a simple question. And she looked into my eyes and said, meh, nothing. Like, she said, don't drink, don't do drugs. And I almost burst into tears, like right then and there, because I was like, that's not the standard that I'm setting for myself. And even with knowing like really nothing about birth, I knew that was not an okay answer.
Yes.
And I remember leaving there and I did cry. I was like, my husband looked at me and was like, we're not going back to her. And I was just really sad. Like, I felt like something so simple, like my practitioner should be able to have a higher bar for me than that. And I'm sure, thinking about her experience, I'm sure she sees a variety of people, and I'm sure she sees people who are very different from me. But that was like the first red flag for me. And just like, that was not individualized care. Like, now looking back, I'm like, that is kind of like sums up the standard procedures, I think, like that you'll get in a typical setting. And I know there's a lot of other like great practitioners out there, but that was like my first experience with it all. And so my husband was like, we're not going back. We'll see someone else next time. So the next appointment, we saw a different OB. I had no idea that there was even I remember when I scheduled my appointments, they were like, do you want the midwives in the hospital or do you want the OB? And I was like, what's the difference? Like, I had no idea. And they didn't really explain it well, because I really still didn't understand. And so then we saw a different OB the second time, and we connected with her much better. Just like, when you talk about like, what's the feeling you get, like when you're hiring your doula or you're hiring your provider. And it was like a much better feeling for us. She just had like a calm presence and was, willing to talk through things. The appointments were still pretty short as they are. And so I remember like not loving that, but slowly as we saw her, I remember like I kept, digging in a little bit more, like asking people questions, like writing down questions on my phone to ask, and just started getting more curious as like my pregnancy went on. And I remember, like now I have such a great support, like community around me. Like I learned how to build that for myself, but at the time I didn't. It was kind of just like me going through the standard care. And so I was slowly just learning along the way. I think it was around like the time when you do the glucose test that I started questioning things, because I was like starting to follow just like different accounts on Instagram and like more natural minded people. And I remember maybe reading something about the glucose test and like what was in it. And I was like, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to take that nasty drink with all the dyes and whatever in it. So that was like, I think like the first time that I started questioning a little bit more. And so I remember like messaging my OB and saying, what are the other options? Can I take the fresh test, or can I, whatever. And I remember, I think it was like a nurse that responded, and they weren't super like, I don't remember it being like, yeah, sure. It was, I had to like fight back again.
Yeah. Right.
So for lack of better words, I fought back and I was like, no, like I'd really like to take something else. Like, what are my other, like I had to be a little bit persistent about it. And then I remember her, like my actual OB was like, yes, I'll do you can bring a fruit juice. So I was really happy with that. I was like, oh, great. And it was like that first feeling of like, I advocated for something that like I wanted, something so small. So I did that, and I brought my little juice with me, and I remember like my coworkers being like, oh, you have to drink that nasty drink, you're going to do that appointment, and I was like, well, I'm not drinking that. I'm doing this. So I don't know, it's such like a small thing, but I feel like that was maybe the first time that I started advocating a little more for something else.
It's a huge victory.
Yeah, that was like the start of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then I don't know if I just keep going along the way. I still was feeling a little bit lost. I remember I don't know, I just felt like there had to be more. Like there had to be more I needed to know. And I wasn't getting that out of my appointments. It was like, here's what the hospital provides. And I just felt like, okay, but what if I don't want any of those things? And I just remember feeling so lost, like I could tear up thinking about it, because I was trying to like confide in people around me. I had a lot of friends who were pregnant at the same time. But they were having different experiences, and like I was just questioning everything, and I don't know that other people were. So I still just felt like alone. And my husband was actually very like medically minded. So that was also interesting for us to go through because he didn't question medical um, like medical, I don't know, just procedures, what the right word is.
Yeah, the
Um,
standard of care is the
yeah,
standard of care, and yeah.
yeah. But I think he saw like how it was making me feel. And so we were just really in growing pains going through this whole thing. Um, and I would say as we like continued and I had this feeling, I remember talking to like some friends and just saying like, this doesn't feel right for me. And for some reason, like at work, I had two coworkers. Um, like one of my coworkers was like, you should hire a doula. And I like, without even knowing my situation, she knew nothing about how I was feeling because I was like very professional at work. I didn't really, talk about anything like that. But she just came up to me and was like, you'll need a doula. Trust me. Like, my husband will tell you. She's like, my husband will tell you it was the best investment we ever had. And I was like, what's a doula? Like, I was like, what is that? Like, I just knew nothing. And she's like, well, like something so small. Like, she's like, well, they support you. Like, they come to your birth. And I was like, okay. And so then I was like, that was like the first time like I started to consider something like that. And then like a few weeks later, maybe she was like, I'm telling you, you got to get a doula. And I was like, oh, do I need one? Like but like the seed was planted.
Yes.
So the seed was planted and it was there. And I, went home to Derek and I was like, what, have you ever heard of a doula? Like, I think we need this. And, like it would be a big investment. Like, we were on a budget at the time. I mean, we still are, but like the thing financially, like I had to go to work. I had like, we were following a strict budget and that was a big decision for us if we were going to do that or not. And then I had another coworker talk to me, like, I don't know how this all happened, but like it needed to for me. And thank goodness it did. But I had another coworker talk to me about her unmedicated birth. And I was like, you had an like I had never heard that before. Because like I said, my whole experience was just the media and movies and how terrible everyone makes it seem. And I was like so in awe of her that she had this unmedicated birth and I wanted to know all about it. And she's like, well, I was like, why did you do that? And, and she's like, I wanted to move around. She was just like so nonchalant about it. Like, she's like, I didn't want to be stuck to the bed. I wanted to move around and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, maybe I want that. Like, just like soaking in all these pieces. And then my coworker who said she had the doula also told me she had an unmedicated birth. And I was like, okay, this is a thing. Like, people do this. And so then, I don't know, like continuing on through pregnancy, I'm like, maybe I should just call our doula agency in town and just see what it's about. So I made a call at my lunch hour and I think I talked to Emily, the owner, for quite a while, and I was just kind of unloaded. I was like, this is how I'm feeling. Like, and I was just telling her, like, I'm so lost. Like, I feel like I maybe need this. And she sat and explained to me like, she's like, maybe you need to go to the midwife route. And I was like, what is that? Like, just trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do. And so she explained to me what a midwife was, what the difference is, and just like was such a support for me in this like time of struggle. And I went home and I was like, we need a doula. We're gonna do this. And then I was like, we're gonna switch to the midwives. And so I called the hospital and I was like, I want to switch to, the midwife team. And again, it was just such a journey through all of it. Then we did end up switching to the midwives later on. Like, this was definitely like maybe end of second, I don't know, maybe almost third trimester at this point. Um, and I just kept trying to do better with the knowledge that I was taking in. And that's what I always say. We always say you do the best with the knowledge that you have. And I just kept trying to do that. So we switched to the midwife team. And although, like, some people call them like midwives because they are in the hospital, like they still have to follow like hospital procedures and things, but it felt even better yet because I was getting more appointment time. I mean, we were spending like 45 minutes maybe in appointments versus my 10. And things were just starting to feel a little bit better. So I got to meet with, some of the midwives, and then we did end up hiring doulas, and my husband was like, this is the most important event of your life, of our life. And if you feel like you need support like a doula, then we're going to invest in that. And I just am so thankful that he said that because it was the most important time and event of my entire life. And I was really thankful to have that support. So, yeah.
Yay to those coworkers.
Yeah.
We love a supportive husband. So yay, Derek.
Mm-hmm.
And wow, it's so inspiring to hear, like I said, you just following that instinct. And this is such a common narrative of I'm doing everything that I'm quote unquote supposed to be doing, but either it feels off or there's some type of a yellow or could be a major red flag or something maybe just feels like it's missing. What do I do? So I'm very inspired. I'm hoping that our listeners, if we have any parents or pregnant women listening who have maybe not gone through this, they have confidence that they can listen to that voice inside of them saying that there's something more, there's something not quite right. And then, to explore that to the extent that you can. And there are some free options, but then to your point, like deciding that this is so important
Mm-hmm.
and it's worth investing into if you can we say it all the time, and I know that I'm preaching to the choir, but it's just so, so important to make that realization. And especially for husbands who a lot of times are thinking further down the road of, okay, then we have to have all the resources to then raise this child, and it's a lot of pressure on them too. So good on Derek for realizing truly the gravity of the situation and
Yeah.
supporting you through it.
Yeah, I'm really thankful because I know for him it was also like a learning curve together, but I'm proud of him too for saying that at the time because we were both trying to figure out, I'm sure I was going home and he was listening to me just in how I was feeling, and I'm proud of him too for saying that.
Yeah.
Obviously they don't husbands don't always say the right things, and that was something you said that was the right thing, and I'm really thankful.
Oh. Okay, so now you're with the midwife group. You're
Mhm,
getting to spend more time in your appointments. You're having a
mhm,
better experience than with the last two OBs.
mhm.
And how was the rest of your pregnancy? Like, did you have a healthy pregnancy? Did you feel like you had more options with any of the other tests, or how did the clinical, I say clinical, but I'm really interested in your experience of the rest of the pregnancy.
Yeah. Um, well, I guess I forgot to mention something that sticks out to me a little bit is when they did the 20-week ultrasound, um, we weren't finding out the gender. I remember there being a student along for the ultrasound, and they kind of just said, like, if it's okay, like the student's going to be, or I don't even think they said if it's okay. I think they just said our student will be doing the ultrasound, and I was like, okay. And like me being in education, I was like, well, yeah, I should let the student learn and whatever. So, but it ended up taking like double the amount of time, because, and I support learning and I support that, but looking back at it, I'm really, it kind of bothers me because we were doing the ultrasound for that long. And like I've read a little more about ultrasounds now, and I don't feel great that I sat there in the ultrasound for such a long time because the student did it and then they redid it with the supervisor or whatever.
Sure.
And so they also slipped and told us the gender during that time.
Shoot.
So twice they said he, and I remember like feeling really crushed, like they walked out of the room and Derek was like, we kind of were just quiet and we looked at each other and we're like, did you hear that? Did you hear that? And we're like, yeah. So that was like a big disappointment. I don't know why I'm tearing up, but we just really wanted it to be a surprise, and I feel like that was kind of taken. But that's so whatever, moving on.
Wait, no, I don't want to move on because did they ever acknowledge their mistake?
No.
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 What?
No. No one said anything. They said he twice, and then no one acknowledged any part, and it wasn't the student that said it either.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
I'm so sorry that happened, Meghan.
Thank you. It ended up being okay. Like we did feel disappointed for a while. Not that it was a boy or anything like that, but just like, cause we wanted it to be a surprise, and we were telling our family that we weren't finding out, and we ended up just keeping it to ourselves as we wanted it to be in the first place. So we kept it to ourselves, and we held on to it, just us two. And I feel like I tried to make it positive, and I was like, now that I know it's a boy, like I felt like I could bond a little bit more during my pregnancy, knowing that it was boy. And yeah, we just kept it to ourselves. So we tried to honor our wishes as we intended them to be. But yeah, so that happened. And then I would say, like, continuing forward, I just continued to try and learn and ask questions. And by now, I'm like following all these birth accounts on Instagram and listening to all these podcasts, like as it got later into the pregnancy. I started prenatal yoga. And that was a big part of my pregnancy journey because at the beginning of the yoga session, the instructor would bring in someone that you want to consider having on your team. So like she would bring in she brought in my chiropractor to talk, and she brought like a lactation consultant one time, a PT one time, and I had never even known that I should be building up a team of people or considering building a team of people. So I'm learning more, through doing something like this. And she also tried to make it like a sense of community. So we would all sit on our mats like before starting, and we would talk, and she would ask us like to share something with the group. So I was like starting to hear from other people and other perspectives, which I think was good for me, because I could hear experience other people's experiences and start considering like other things. And I remember her talking about, I kind of forgot about this until now, but I remember her talking about her own experience and having a home birth. And I was like, that was the first time I ever heard that. And I remember like asking her about it after class and telling her again, like about my own journey, my own feelings, and like, did you have a doula? Did you, just trying to figure out like where I'm supposed to be again. And she was just telling me a little bit about her home birth and what that entailed. And I was like, oh, just like planting that seed again, because I hadn't heard that before. And so I think that was part of the journey too. And then I ended up calling for a chiropractic appointment maybe a month later. And so then I started chiro at I think I was like 35 weeks pregnant. So I called and I was like, is it too late for me to like add you to my team? And they were like, no, of course not. Like, and I had like some pain in my back and whatever. So that's like the real reason that I went. But come to find out, they can do wonders for so many other things. And that is part of my story too, because then shout out to Dr. Sadie. She then was listening to me. I think like the first question they ask you at like your initial visit is, where does your stress come from? I just sat there and started bawling my eyes out because at that time I was trying to make decisions about, all the things like vaccines and like whatever else you have to decide later on in pregnancy. And I was stressed out because I wanted to know, like, these choices were all of a sudden so much more important because you're making them for your baby. And the weight of these choices just became so much more heavy for me. So I'm sitting in her office and I just start bawling. And it's just funny because that was like my first impression with her. But, and she just like comforted me and was like, you have community here and I can send you some resources. And she did. She emailed me and sent me some more information so that I could make the best choice for myself. So yeah, I added chiropractic to my team and I got some more resources and some more just knowledge coming in my way. And I remember towards the end of my pregnancy, she was like, well, why don't you just have a home birth? And I was like, I think my husband would have a heart attack if I went home right now and said we should have a home birth, like, because I'm about to have this baby in like a week or two. But, I just told her this the other day, like, it took a while for me I needed to process that. And maybe if I would have heard that at the beginning of my pregnancy and that was normalized earlier on for me, like, I could have been our journey instead, but it was just kind of like too late in the game.
What an incredible journey, though, from going from, holy crap, I'm pregnant, not expecting to be pregnant, to then making all those changes and learning everything. I mean, the mental and emotional effort, spiritual, physical, all of it. I mean, the growth is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
From that moment that you pee on a stick
Yeah.
to where you're making all those decisions, especially for you. It's incredible.
Yeah, that's why I think like my story comes from what happened in my pregnancy. Like, I feel like it was such a journey. I don't know what else to call it. Like, I think that was truly when like my transformation began. Like, and you transform a heck of a lot more once you're in birth and labor and having the baby and becoming a mom. Like, that's a transformation itself. But like for pregnancy for me, and even my husband was a big transformation, and I'm thankful for that. We needed that to get to where we are now, or get to the birth story. And it prepared us, that prepared us for birth and set us up for parenthood, I feel like.
Thank God pregnancy is, I mean, I say this and some people will argue with me, I'm sure, but thank God it's not like 3 months long.
Yeah, I know. Well, I needed that much time. I didn't
Yeah.
start even thinking about it till after the first trimester was done. I don't know. I was nauseous, like many of us are, and then I was like, okay, now I can start like this is going to happen, and I can either let this happen to me, or I can have some autonomy and start making this a good experience for myself. And I just kind of had that feeling throughout. And thank goodness I did.
Yes. We
Yeah.
love that so much.
Yes. So again, just started adding a few more people to the team. And I think I mentioned that we got a doula team. So
Yep.
we did our prenatal visit, and they show you different positions, and we practiced different positions for labor and talked through a birth plan. And at that time I was like, yeah, I'm open to medication. And I think looking back, I only said that because I was doubting myself, and I didn't want to disappoint myself. And so I had told them that, and they wrote it in the birth plan. And then, I don't know, maybe a week, because he's a July baby. And then all of June, so I work in the schools. So all of June, I was done with school, and I could just really just focus on birth and my health. Not that I wasn't focusing on health, but I was just very intentional in June. And that was my most transformative month, I think, because I had time I was walking twice a day, listening to every podcast. I started reading Gentle Birth, Gentle Mothering by Sarah Buckley. And I was like, I'm having an unmedicated birth. That's it. I had highlighted everything in that book that I was like, this is why. And I literally took a sheet of paper and I wrote all the reasons just in case I needed to look at that during labor to remind myself why I wanted that for myself. The podcasts I was listening to were normalizing unmedicated birth, physiological birth. They were normalizing that, and I was listening to positive birth stories, and I was starting to do some Christian hypnobirthing. I was intentional about starting to do some breath work, and I just had this chunk of time that I was so that was my only care in the world.
You were dialed in.
Yeah. So yeah,
Awesome.
I was like, this is what I need to do. I called my doulas and I was like, I need you to change this on my birth plan and resend it, please. And I sent it into my provider or the midwife team. And I'll also mention that they had my doula team had a heavy load. They already had other clients booked for that month, my birth month. And they said likely one of us will be there, but we have to mention that there's a chance we could not be there. And as I was researching and reading and deciding I needed a physiological birth, I was like, I need someone there. I know myself. I know I need support there. And so I called them, and this is probably 36, 37 weeks pregnant, 2 weeks before I gave birth. And I was on the verge of tears because I was like, I need to make sure someone's going to be there. I just need you to tell me someone is going to be there. And she was like, okay, yes, let me just make a phone call. I'll call you back. And so then they added Emily added the third doula to the group. And yeah, thank goodness I had that feeling, because the third doula was the one that was there. And I just I don't know, that makes me emotional thinking about it too, because I had that feeling, and I followed it. And that's also a lesson in all of this, to follow your gut. And I think I was really learning to do that. So,
Beautiful.
yes.
Yeah. And then, so you came to the birth class,
Mm-hmm.
and that was, so you must have been, that were you 38 weeks at that time?
Well, I had him at 38 and 3. So I can't remember exactly, but it was probably the week before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I had him, he was a July 4th baby. So I think your second class was just a few days after that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we came to your birth class, and then I hear you talking about physiological birth. You had the pelvis out and the baby, and showing us how it works, on its own. And so I think that was another thing that I needed. It was just all these pieces that were coming into place for us.
Awesome. So how did labor start?
Mm-hmm.
We know that you didn't make it to the second session because he decided to come. So how did you feel, and what happened when labor started?
So July 3rd, Derek was off work, I was off work, and it was super hot. And I was like, I'm going to walk the dog. I was just feeling really good. All of June, just nourishing my body and walking and moving. And I was doing the miles circuit, I was doing some of the spinning babies stuff, and just doing all the things. And so July 3rd, that morning, I took a walk, and I was like, we should go swimming today. It's just so hot out, and we're both off work. And so we ended up going swimming that afternoon. And I just remember feeling so good, just literally just swimming laps up and down in the pool. And it was packed with so many people, but I didn't care. I was like, I need to move. This feels amazing. The water just is so therapeutic. And then we did that for hours, and we went home that evening, and my husband was like, I'm going to go golfing. And I was like, okay, you go. And I, laid on the couch, and I was just relaxing. And I remember he kept texting me, you doing okay? How you doing? And I was I remember just feeling really annoyed. I was like, I am fine. I'm laying on the couch. Just go do your own thing. I remember just feeling annoyed for some reason. And for some reason, he was so worried. And he came home, and I was just laying on the couch. It was probably I don't know, at this point, 8 o'clock. We're laying down together, and I was just in this mood, and tired, and in this mood. And I would say around, it was probably 9 o'clock. I was thinking, yeah, I'm probably about ready to go to bed. And my water broke. So all of a sudden we're just laying on the couch together, and I hear this pop, it sounded like a balloon popped, and I felt it, and I was like, wow, I just screamed, what was that? And I look at him, I'm like, what was that? Did you hear that? And he was like, yeah. And I got up and ran to the bathroom, and I was like, I think my water just broke. And I was just I did not see that coming. Where did this come from? And I think it's like, correct me if I'm wrong, only like 10% of births like start with their water breaking, which I didn't really know
Yeah.
at the time. So I was just like, okay, this is about to happen, I guess. And Derek like texted our doula, and we were kind of, well, like we were planning to stay home as long as we could because I didn't want any interventions in the hospital. So we were going to kind of labor at home as long as we could. And, but then my water broke and it kind of changed things because I had GBS. And the hospital is really, really worried about that. Like they're just very concerned about that. And at the time, I was also a little concerned. Like, I don't know. I know in pregnancy, I forgot to mention that I did get diagnosed GBS. And I was really crushed because I was like, I didn't want any intervention. Like, I didn't want any, I just wanted it. I wanted to not have that. and,
Right.
and it's really, it's okay. Like now I know I would have done maybe things a little differently, but at the time we were like, okay, we're going to go in. Because there was like a small risk of infection. So I took a shower and I remember like, I'm like, Derek, like, it's not stopping. Like it's still like coming. And so like he went and like put a bunch of towels in the car and whatever. So finally around 10 o'clock, we get in the car and we're driving to the hospital. And like, I didn't have any contractions. I was like, happy and like, oh, this is exciting. And we were just like watching fireworks in the distance because it was July 3rd, which is kind of like a fun memory. Just enjoying the fireworks and like, okay, this is happening, and just in good spirits. And I remember when we got to the hospital, they were like, you need to sit in this wheelchair. And I was so annoyed. I was like, I can walk. And they were like, no, you have to sit in this chair.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, I don't want to sit in this chair. And they
You're
made
making security uncomfortable, Meghan.
I was like, seriously? Like, and so they made me, they made me sit in this wheelchair. So that was my first impression. And then we like you obviously have to go through like triage and whatever. So then we went up to the triage room and I was still just kind of annoyed, like, just with all the policies. And she was like, so I need to do a check. And I was like, well, what if I don't want you to do a check? Like, I don't know. I was just really challenging them, I think. But it was how I was feeling. And she was like, well, we have to, like, if you want to go to the labor, like I have to see where you're at so you can go to the labor room. And I was like, okay, fine. So they did that and sent us to the labor room. I don't know, maybe an hour or two. It gets a little blurry because I went into labor land, but we got to our labor room around maybe midnight. And my midwife came and met with us, and I had met her maybe a few times during like the pregnancy visits, prenatal visits, and she was just talking with us, and she was like, yeah, like you should probably get some rest. They thought that I should get some rest for when like contractions and labor was starting to ramp up. And my doula said the same thing, like to get some rest. So Derek ran home quick to go get a bunch of pillows. Like I was like, I need my pregnancy pillow. Like I need all these things. And so like, I don't know, he ran to get those, and she stayed with me while he was gone. So she was talking with me, and I remember like I couldn't talk through contractions. I had to like stop during them, but then we would continue conversation. And then Derek came back, and I just remember not being able to rest. Like I think we maybe laid on the bed, like the lights were off. The midwife was like, I'm going to go get some rest myself to get ready. My doula was like, I'm going to try and get some rest, but let me know, if like when you need me kind of thing. So we were laying on the bed, and I just remember starting to feel uncomfortable. Like we maybe laid there for an hour or two, I would guess. And at some point I was like, Derek, like I can't rest. Like this is not happening. And so I really
Not
did.
a restful situation anymore.
It was not restful at all. And um yeah, so then I was like, you need to like call Emily, call the doula. And so she came right away. I think it maybe was like 3 a.m. at this point, if I had to guess. And our midwife came shortly after Emily, and she labored with us the whole time. And I remember like being like pleasantly kind of surprised by that, because I know in the hospital, a lot of providers will just show up when the baby's coming. So I was like really happy with that. And they were both like very calm presence. And like when Emily showed up, I was just like really relieved. Like just her presence of, and I think a lot of people feel that way when like they have doula support. Like it was just like, oh, like she's here. Like I'm going to be okay. Like that was in my head. And not that I didn't think Derek was a good support, but I don't know. There's something about having a doula that's like really comforting. Like they know what they're doing.
They know birth and our
Yes,
husbands know us. I know
yes.
that's what Emily says. And so, yeah,
Mhm.
forces combined and we're going to have a great experience.
That's exactly it. Yes.
Mm.
They know us and doulas know birth. That's exactly it. And um, yeah, so I had my birth plan, obviously, but I think my whole team knew about that. I didn't have to like, you know, we all knew. We all were in the know because we had communicated a lot prior. And I think that's a key thing is like communication. Um, because if you're showing up at your birth and you're with strangers who don't know what you want, like that's going to be a problem. So I think looking back, like my team knew what we wanted and I felt really supported. So Emily is, coaching us to try different positions, and we didn't get the tub room. There was only one tub room, and I was a little worried about that. So we were in the not tub room, and I, did some different positions on like the birth ball and hanging over the bed, and that being okay. I remember like them doing some hip squeezes. That I was like, I don't know, that's just not really cutting it for me. Like I wasn't getting relief for some reason. And we had practiced those. So I was like, oh great, like this isn't working. What are we gonna do? And for some reason, like I had really bad back labor. Like I don't think I was prepared for that. I just didn't know I was gonna feel it in my back so much. And so really like the fist in the back was like my comfort. So Derek was, giving me like that fist in my back, and he jokes. I asked him before the podcast, I was like, is there anything you want to share? And he was like, yeah, work out. Guys need to work out before birth. So I remember like we joke about that. Like I'm like, you need to get prepared too. Like you need to get ready too. And he was like sore after from.
I know a lot of dad clients that would attest to that for
Mhm.
sure.
Yes. So there was a lot of that, and I don't know. There were different positions we tried, and I know now like it's important to keep moving and switching positions um, and such. Then they had asked me if I wanted to try laboring in the shower, and every time I did not want to move. Like you're like, nope, I can't. I don't think I can move, but your support team gets you there. And I got to the shower, and I loved it. Like the water on my back was like what I needed. The water and the fist in the back was like everything. And at that point, the nurse, I had a wonderful nurse. Like she had asked me, she was like, are we doing antibiotics because of GBS? And like all through pregnancy, I was like, I don't know if I want that. Like it was just such, again, like a heavy choice that I felt like I had to make. And so I agreed to a round of antibiotics. Derek had also wanted to do that, we made the decision. So you do the best with what you can at the time. So we said yes, we consented to that. And she put my IV for the antibiotics in my hand. I barely noticed it. Like she was really wonderful. And meanwhile, I'm just in the shower. And Derek like jokes because he was like soaking wet, like trying to support me for 2 hours in the shower. And it just felt really good. And eventually I came out. And then I remember like seeing the light behind the curtain because we had it dark in the room and we were trying to keep everything was quiet and peaceful. And that was all intentional, right? Like we built that into the birth plan. Well, it didn't just happen by chance, I don't think. And I can see like the light coming behind the curtain. And I'm like, okay. So I'm just like, because you're kind of in labor land and you don't really know time. Or at least I didn't. And
Right.
so I could tell like it was starting to be early morning. And I just started thinking like, I don't know if I can keep doing this. Like this is hard, it's intense. And I remember being in another position out of the shower, and I said to him, like, we had a code word, I think, for epidural, and I wanted so badly not to say, I didn't say it, but I just said, I don't think I can do this. I remember saying that, and Emily looked at me and was like, well, the anesthesiologist is really busy in the other room. It's probably you might as well just keep doing what you're doing. And I was like, okay. Like that was enough for me. I was like, okay. For some
You
reason.
just had to get it out. Like, this is so hard. Yeah.
I just had, I don't know what it was, but that was enough for me. And I remember that moment thinking she's probably lying, but whatever. And so, I just kept laboring and with their support and their calm presence. And my midwife was there, just being there. Like, honestly, like it's boring. Like this is a boring, it should be boring, right? Like it's just, they allowed space for me and supported me. And like, I'm thankful that there are pictures because I can look back and like see what was happening. And like when I look back at the pictures, everyone's like, the midwife is sitting there and I'm like, they're just there. And, whether it's physical support or emotional support, like whatever it was, like I felt supported. And at some point, I say like by the grace of God, the tub room was open and they told me that, hey, they're finishing up in there. We're going to get it cleaned for you so you can move in there. And I was so
Amazing.
happy. Like that was God working for me. And I remember moving to the room was tricky because I had a big contraction like in the hallway. And I remember being in the hallway, and I think there were some ladies who were cleaning in the hallway, and we walked out and I got this huge contraction and they taught me how to like put my arms up and hang on like whoever, and I just went to my midwife and I hung on her like that with all of my weight in the hallway.
I 1,000,000% thought that you were gonna say I lifted up my arms and hung onto one of the cleaning ladies.
Oh my gosh,
Sorry.
that would have been the best story.
Sorry, continue. I don't know why my brain does these things.
I kind of wish that happened, but I mentioned the cleaning ladies because there were people out there watching me, and
Sure.
I was like pretty much naked the entire time I was laboring, and so I just remember like I'm like, people are watching me. I don't care. Like, I don't care. And anyways, so we finally get to the tub, and I think that I don't know, it had to be around 7 a.m. at this point, if I had to guess again. Um, and like, that was the best feeling throughout this whole time. And I finally felt like I was calm and I could breathe. Like, I knew how to breathe through these contractions, and like, I got this. Like, it was the first time I was like, truly felt like calm and okay. Like, I don't know. It was finally the time where I was like, this is good. This is okay. I got this. And the tub felt so good. Like, I remember telling Emily, like, I don't want to get out of here. And she was like, then don't. But like, I knew they were going to make me get out at some point, and I think that's what I was already thinking about. Like, I don't want to get out. And they just kept watching me. And then there was a nurse switch, and I didn't love the nurse that was there. I would say she was the only one in this story that wasn't the most, I don't know what the right words are.
It wasn't aligned with what
Yeah,
you had envisioned, yeah. I
yeah.
mean, you can just say what's on your mind too, you don't have to sugarcoat it either.
Okay, well, I was really annoyed with her because she was on her own agenda, and
Mhm.
it wasn't mine. And
Yeah.
I feel like everyone else thus far had respected my agenda, or what I wanted, my preferences, my birth plan, and like, it's not like she did anything wrong. It just wasn't really aligning with what everyone else was doing. And I remember like my midwife having to say things to her like, nope, she's not doing that. Nope. And I was thankful that I had my support team, because when you're in labor, you need people to know what you want so they can support you. Like, you don't always have the words to tell people in that moment. And she was trying to do like some of the monitoring in the tub, and I just remember being like, can you just go away? And yeah, the water was therapeutic in itself. And I remember starting, like, my body just naturally started to push. And I was thinking in my head, like, I think I'm pushing. And like, started making those like really low moaning noises, which kind of caught me by surprise. But my body just like naturally started doing all of these things because it knew what to do. And I just trusted that. And they knew by watching me, like, when baby was coming. And I just remember, like, again, not wanting to get out, but I knew they were going to make me get out. But they did it at just the time that um, he was like literally about to come out. So I don't know if I stayed in the tub for maybe an hour and a half, and then um, was kind of, bared down in the tub and started pushing. And we went to the squat bar. And I think like within 2 more pushes, he was here. Well, first I felt his head, and then like one more push, one more contraction, and he was here. And the feeling is like unmatched. Like, I don't think can describe like the feeling, but they gave him to me. He was on my chest, and he like looked up. Like, I just remember his eyes like looked up at me, and it was the best moment of my entire life. Because I was like feeling all the things, like I did it. I don't know, like I told you, my whole pregnancy journey, like it's all such a journey. And it was like the emotions are so high. Your hormones, if you go into that side of it, are all working naturally how they're supposed to. And you just have this like high. And it was the best feeling ever. And him looking up at me, like I'll never forget that moment. Yeah, so that was 9 a.m. on the 4th of July. So about 12 hours after my water broke.
Wow.
I know that usually I think it can take like 24 to 48 hours, like after your water breaks. But I didn't know that at the time. So yeah, it was about 12 hours.
That's amazing. You are such a good storyteller too, Megan. Like, I just love all the detail, and I know that our listeners are really going to appreciate all the detail because this is a way that we can learn when we haven't done it before. One question I had for you is, so you mentioned going to the squat bar. Were you standing at the edge of the bed, or were you on the bed leaning, like
Mhm.
looking towards the end of the bed?
Um,
Do you remember?
I think I was holding on with my hands, like leaning back a little. Not leaning back, but just like like a big deep squat, like if you do a squat on the
Yeah.
ground. Like that's what I looked like, but I was up on the bed, squatting on the bed. If that makes
Got it. Okay.
sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's just kind of what they supported me to do, and I was like, okay, and it worked.
Beautiful. Oh. And how was Derek at that time? Like when you were in the tub and when you birthed your baby? I mean, it was such a great experience for you.
Mhm.
How did he experience that moment?
Yeah, I mean, I just remember him like being a calm presence. Like when we were in the when I was in the tub, like he was just my calm present. He was just very present and calm. And then um I don't know, I remember him giving me affirmations and like telling me little things, which I appreciate, but in the moment I was like, okay. I don't know, for some reason, like I don't know. I was like just more focused on like what the doula had to say, but he was such a key piece to like this whole birth experience. He was giving me affirmations, and then like when we went to the bed, I just remember him just smiling, like just watching and smiling and taking it all in, I think, for himself and just processing it all himself too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just have pictures
So
of us
beautiful.
both, well, me, like, losing my mind because I was so high on life. And then, like, I'm just sitting there bawling, and he's just standing there smiling, and they were like, "What's his name?" And I just spit it right out. I'm like, "This is his name," and I was just so happy. There's just no way to describe it.
Yeah. It is so beautiful.
Thank you. I really feel like, um, sharing positive birth stories is important. Um So thanks for giving me the space to share that. And again, like if we don't talk about it, and don't share like positive stories, we don't really know. Like people just like me, I didn't know, until I started listening and reading to other people's, experiences. So thank you.
Absolutely. So before we end, I always want to, like, I never want to end a birth story without asking about how your postpartum experience was and how, like, did you breastfeed? How did that immediate postpartum time frame go for you after this amazing experience?
Yeah,
We still have all of these hormonal fluctuations. What was your experience after birth?
yeah. I'm really blessed to say that I had a wonderful postpartum because I know that doesn't happen for everybody. Um, but I truly I was just in bliss, like after birth. And Like I couldn't even sleep. Like I didn't sleep. I mean, I birthed through the night. So I didn't, I mean, a lot of people do, but like I didn't sleep till since the night before. And then I stayed awake because I was just on this high.
Mhm.
And I remember like just not being able to go to sleep because I was so happy. And breastfeeding came pretty easy, which I know it doesn't for everybody. So I'm grateful. I I did continue to breastfeed, and I will say, like, I knew I wanted to get support with that in the hospital, and I had asked multiple times for a lactation consultant to come, but it was a holiday, and that was an issue. So I really the first few. I don't know, we were there for 2 days and like no one was coming, but like we were doing okay. And then I like had to advocate for myself the last day and I was like, I need someone to come here and make sure like I'm doing this right. And they did send like the NICU lactation consultant or something in. And I mean, at that point, I probably wasn't taking in any of the information, like because I hadn't slept, like I had this new baby. You're just not in the right state to like learn something at
Your
that
brain
point.
is literally like a rewiring itself through the whole thing.
It sure is.
Yeah.
It sure is. So yeah, it really went well. I was kind of lucky because I would say now I always say like now in present day, like have a lactation consultant on your support team. I didn't do that before. Um, as I explained, I was going through such a journey learning all the things, and I didn't really do that. So that was something I knew was important, but I didn't really. I took like the hospital lactation class. So I knew I wanted to do it. I just wasn't exactly, I didn't have it all lined up. Um, but we got kind of lucky because every time we went in to do some checks, like postpartum, like with baby, every time I had a lactation consultant as a nurse. So I got a little bit lucky that they were there to kind of check in on us and see how we were doing. And it was really sore and painful for me to begin with. I will say that. Like I was like, is this normal? Like I was bleeding. It was very painful. Um, I feel like I got lucky because it worked itself out, and I kept seeing like different lactation consultants. And then I did find one a lactation consultant outside of the hospital that I was then began to see. So she supported me throughout the rest of the breastfeeding journey. We breastfed till about a year and a half, maybe a little less than that. Yeah, so that went really well. My postpartum experience, I felt like was really positive. I think the time that it got really hard for me and maybe even Derek was like when we were expected to go back to work. That was really hard. Um, I just like lack of sleep and I think that's when I started noticing like some changes in my husband more than me. And I don't think people talk about that a lot. Um, I could see him like going through some struggles and I think it was because we were so sleep deprived, honestly. Like, and
Absolutely.
then going back
Mhm.
to, he went back to a very high stress job and those things together at the same time are really hard. And that was a whole nother journey in itself. That would be a whole nother story. But everyone has some learning curves. So we definitely went through some growth through postpartum too. But we learned how to take turns at night, and we learned how to, let me have a stretch of sleep, and let him have a stretch of sleep. Like, but that came with some time and with talking and getting support and our lactation consultant suggesting things like that. So we didn't have like a postpartum doula or anything, but I think like it's important to talk about it and have people to support you so that you don't, you're not alone and you don't struggle. And I think without some of those things and conversations, like it wouldn't have been as good as it was. And I was lucky that like we had family that were popping in and giving us meals, and my mom would come and clean, and Derek would clean. Like he knew that was like something that would be important to me, and bring me water and bring me this, and I don't know. It was a good experience, but it wasn't perfect by any means.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Messy and good,
Yes,
I think, define parenthood.
100%. Messy and good. Yeah, two emotions can exist at the same time.
Yes. Oh, Meghan, thank you so, so much for being so open and for spending the time with me here today to share your story. It really is a beautiful story. And I think that it's going to help a lot of families because it goes to show that you can have a beautiful experience, even I'm thinking about my audience right now, even in the hospital, even if it's your first baby, there are a lot of pieces that definitely need to come together in order for that to happen. But it's possible in any location and in any circumstance. And that's what this platform is about. So
Mm-hmm.
thank you so much for being so open.
Yeah. Thank you for giving me the space to share. I really appreciate it.
So before we end, I do have one final question. If you could offer one piece of wisdom to transform the fear and trauma in today's birth culture into confidence, healing, and triumph, what would it be?
I've been thinking a lot about your question, Jamie. And I think if I had to summarize it, I would just say make choices that serve you. Like, have the autonomy to choose what's best for you and your baby. There's a lot of uncontrollables in birth and in life. We don't know how it's going to play out. But I think when you can feel confident in the intentional choices that you've made to set yourself up for a positive experience, I think that you will feel empowered. And becoming a mother blesses you with the greatest responsibility of making choices. So be intentional and do the research, follow your gut, make the birth plan, choose your support team, make choices that will serve you as an individual because it's your birth.